The internet has been buzzing, and it is not slowing down anytime soon. King Harris, the son of hip-hop heavyweight T.I. and R&B icon Tiny Harris, has found himself at the center of a storm that goes far deeper than most people initially realized. His girlfriend has stepped forward and spoken openly about her experiences with the Harris family, and the response has been nothing short of explosive. But before anyone can fully understand what is unfolding right now, they need to understand exactly who King Harris is and how the pieces of his story fell into place one by one. Born Clifford Joseph King Harris III on August 25, 2004, in Atlanta, Georgia, King entered the world already under a spotlight that most people will never experience in a lifetime. His father, the iconic rapper known professionally as T.I. or Tip, is one of the most decorated figures in Southern hip-hop history, a multi-platinum recording artist, actor, entrepreneur, and record producer whose influence on the genre is undeniable. His mother, Tamika Tiny Harris, is equally accomplished, having made her mark in the entertainment world as a singer, songwriter, and longtime member of the beloved R&B group Xscape. This was not a household where fame was something you chased. It was something you were born into. King grew up surrounded by a large, blended family that includes siblings Zonique Pullins, Messiah, Domani, Deja, and others, many of whom have carved out their own spaces in the entertainment world. The Harris family has also been at the center of reality television for years, meaning King Harris grew up not just in a famous household, but on camera, in front of an audience that watched his every move from childhood. That kind of upbringing shapes a person in ways both visible and invisible, and for King, those effects would eventually play out very publicly. By 2020, King had begun making his own moves in the music industry, performing under the stage name Kid Cyan and releasing early singles that dipped into trap music and melodic hip-hop. His debut EP, A Thin Line Between a King and a Peasant, followed in 2021, featuring tracks that showed a young artist trying to establish his own identity beyond his family name. That same year, he dropped his debut album Wild Rockstar, and his social media presence, particularly on Instagram, became one of his biggest platforms for connecting with fans and showcasing his talent. He also made television appearances, including a spot on the popular improv comedy series Wild 'N Out and a guest role on Wash Wars, signaling that doors were opening for him in entertainment. But as those doors opened, so did a set of challenges that would begin to define King's story in a way that had nothing to do with music. The Waffle House incident of September 2022 was the moment King Harris crossed from being a celebrity kid with a budding music career into being a public figure people talked about for entirely different reasons. A video of King involved in a heated verbal confrontation at an Atlanta Waffle House made its rounds across the internet, and suddenly the audience paying attention to him extended well beyond fans of his parents or followers of his music. T.I. and Tiny addressed it publicly, standing by their son while acknowledging how uniquely complicated it is to grow up in the kind of glare that follows the Harris family everywhere they go. But the world had already formed its opinions, and the comment sections were not kind. What became clear from that point forward was that King had a pattern of engaging directly with critics and commentators on social media. He was not the type to let anything slide without a response, and while that boldness earned him a loyal following, also pulled him into situations that spiral far beyond a simple back and forth online. His willingness to fight back publicly, on every platform and in every arena, became as much a part of his identity as his music. And unfortunately, that same energy that made him compelling to watch was also steering him toward consequences that would be far harder to shake than a trending topic. Because the story of King Harris was never just about social media drama. It was always building towards something bigger. The online clashes were only the surface layer of a situation that would eventually involve police reports, court filings, strained family relationships, and a very pregnant silence from the people closest to him, right up until the moment they stopped being silent. What happened next took everything from a digital spectacle to a real-world reckoning, and at the center of it all was a young man who had every resource imaginable, yet kept choosing the hardest possible road. The legal trouble surrounding King Harris did not arrive out of nowhere. There was a pattern, a slow accumulation of incidents that grew harder and harder to dismiss with each new development. On August 31st, 2022, King made headlines when he announced on social media that he had been arrested, sharing his own mugshot with his followers and then jumping on Instagram to deliver his personal version of events. The charge that prompted the arrest? Failure to wear a seatbelt. For most people, that is a minor citation that amounts to a small fine and a reminder to buckle up. For King Harris, it became a full-blown viral moment. Rather than keeping a low profile after the arrest, King leaned into it, posting a defiant selfie where he flipped off the camera and captioned it with language that made very clear how he felt about law enforcement. He followed it up with more posts celebrating what he called a minor setback before a major comeback. The internet, predictably, had a lot to say. People across social media questioned how a young man born into extraordinary privilege, with access to the kind of financial security and opportunity that most people can only dream about, could romanticize a brush with the law over a traffic violation. The criticism was loud, pointed, and relentless. But the response that carried the most weight did not come from a Twitter thread or a comment section. It came from his father. T.I. took to Instagram Live and delivered a message that was equal parts warning and heartbreak. He said plainly that if his son kept moving the way he was moving, prison was the inevitable destination, and there was nothing he or anyone else would be able to do to stop it. He said he recognized that energy because it was the same energy he once carried himself, and he knew exactly where it led. What made that statement land so hard was the credibility behind it. T.I. is not speaking theoretically. He is a man who has served federal prison time, who has lived the consequences of chasing the wrong things, and who is now watching his son walk the same road with the same reckless confidence. What made things significantly worse was the fuller picture that emerged around the same time. Court records revealed that King had an active warrant for failure to appear in a separate case out of Pickens County, stemming from charges that included speeding, driving on a suspended license, and driving under the influence of drugs. The seatbelt arrest was just the one that made the headlines. There was a whole other layer of legal exposure quietly piling up. Then came October 2024, when King pulled out of a gas station directly in front of a Dunwoody police cruiser, nearly colliding with it. The officer who pulled him over detected the smell of marijuana coming from the vehicle and noticed that King had a firearm holstered on his hip. Running his information revealed the outstanding warrant from Pickens County, and King Harris was taken into custody again. By all accounts, he was cooperative during the arrest, something officers noted in their report, but cooperation during a police stop could not erase the mounting legal history that was following him everywhere. T.I.'s words about his son carried an unmistakable weight when he told the public that he'd done everything a parent could do, that the whoopings, the punishments, and the conversations had all been exhausted, and that what happened next was entirely on King. It was not the statement of a father giving up. It was a statement of a man who had been fighting a battle behind closed doors for years and was finally letting the world in on just how difficult that fight had been. He was not washing his hands of his son. He was being honest about his limitations as a parent in the face of a young man who had made up his mind. And the legal drama, as consuming as it was, turned out to be only one part of the chaos. There were also the relationships, the women connected to King's life, and a romantic situation that was about to go public in a major way. In August 2024, T.I. appeared on Atlanta's Hot 107.9 radio station to promote new music and casually dropped a piece of news that sent the internet into a frenzy. His son King was expecting a child. T.I. announced it with his signature combination of humor and candor, declaring that he had a grandson on the way and joking that he planned to raise the baby to be the greatest source of payback that King had ever experienced, a lighthearted way of acknowledging just how much drama his son had put him through. The laughter was real, but so was the underlying message. In November of that year, King and the mother of his child, a young woman known publicly as Big Nana, welcomed a baby boy into the world. King marked the occasion with a heartfelt track titled Dear Son, dedicated to his newborn, and his Instagram post announcing the birth carried a note of genuine pride and purpose. For a brief moment, it felt as though fatherhood might be the catalyst of the kind of change that arrests and public criticism had failed to inspire. But the romantic storyline around King was far more complicated than one relationship, and the drama surrounding the women connected to him was about to become a very public matter. The girlfriend at the center of the most serious allegations fits into a broader pattern of scrutiny that the Harris family has faced from multiple directions. A woman named Peterson had taken legal action against T.I. and Tiny, and in her posts and filings, she made explosive claims, including sharing what she described as text messages between King and a young woman she characterized as a trafficking victim. She alleged that the girl's family had reached out to her legal team, deeply concerned that their child had been pulled into a network tied to the Harris family. These were allegations, not proven facts, and the court ultimately dismissed the defamation suit Peterson had filed against the couple, ordering her to pay nearly $97,000 in legal fees. But in the court of public opinion, the damage had already been done. King Harris, still only in his early 20s, was now being named in conversations that extended far beyond traffic stops and missed court dates. Then came the footage that nobody could look away from. At an Atlanta Falcons game in November 2023, King Harris was captured in a live-streamed argument with both of his parents, T.I. and Tiny, that was raw, unfiltered, and deeply uncomfortable to watch. The dispute reportedly began during the game itself, with King taking to Instagram Live mid-argument, challenging the narrative of his upbringing. He claimed that he had not been raised in the luxury lifestyle that the world assumed came with being T.I.'s son, that he had primarily been raised by his grandmother, not in the comfort of the Harris family estate. T.I. and Tiny pushed back immediately and directly, disputing his version of events in real time while the cameras kept rolling. What made the moment so striking was not just the argument itself, but the platform it played out on. This was not a behind-closed-doors family dispute that leaked later. This was live, on camera, in a stadium full of people, streamed directly to their followers. T.I. later described it as an ordinary family disagreement, the kind that every parent and child eventually has, and tried to minimize the significance of what the public had witnessed. But the internet had already cataloged it, analyzed it, and added it to the growing file of evidence that the Harris family was dealing with fractures that ran deeper than any interview or press statement could smooth over. The girlfriend situation, the one that brought everything to a courtroom, did not emerge in a vacuum. It was a product of years of accumulating tension, public incidents, legal entanglements, and the very specific kind of pressure that comes from being close to someone whose life is perpetually on the edge of chaos. When the people inside King's Circle begin to speak out, whether the courts or the public, it resonates differently than it would for an ordinary person because the world already has context. Every new claim lands on top of a foundation that King himself has been building, incident by incident, year by year. And that foundation makes even unproven allegations feel entirely plausible to an audience that has been watching the pattern unfold in real time. If anyone believed that King Harris was going to quietly retreat from public life after the family altercation and the mounting legal issues, February 2026 made it abundantly clear that retreat was not in his vocabulary. That month, King threw himself headfirst into one of the most explosive rap feuds of the year, the long simmering tension between his father T.I. and entertainment mogul 50 Cent, a conflict rooted in a proposed Razoo's battle that 50 reportedly backed out of. It was not a new rivalry, but it reached a boiling point that nobody was fully prepared for. T.I. had been promoting his Kill the King album and releasing this material aimed squarely at 50 Cent when the feud hit its most volatile point. After T.I. debuted a war-themed snippet on Atlanta's Hot 107.9 on February 23rd, the situation escalated beyond music when 50 Cent posted a photo of Tiny Harris on his social media, an image that was widely perceived as a taunt aimed directly at the family. That one post changed everything. It was no longer just two rappers trading shots over a failed battle. It was personal, and the Harris family responded accordingly. King Harris did not wait for permission. He jumped into 50 Cent's comments immediately, making it clear that he was ready for whatever came next. But King did not stop at a comment. He went further, posting an image on Instagram that featured a tombstone engraved with the name of 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, along with the years of her life. It was a kind of move that made the entire internet stop scrolling. Even by the standards of hip-hop beef, which has a long history of cutting deep, posting the image of a dead parent's gravestone crossed a line that most people in the culture consider sacred. The reaction was immediate and divided, with some calling it unacceptable and others viewing it as a Harris family simply refusing to be played with. King was not done. He released a full diss track titled Made Man, aimed directly at 50 Cent, and his brother Domani joined the campaign with a song called Ms. Jackson, which sampled a classic Outkast record of the same name, and was written as a direct message to 50's late mother. The cover art for Domani's release depicted a burning house, a reference to the tragic circumstances of Sabrina Jackson's death. King then went a step further, shooting a music video in which he wore a custom shirt bearing 50 Cent's mother's image on the front. That visual was the moment that crossed the final line. Even rapper Rick Ross, who has his own long-running public feud with 50 Cent, hopped into King's comments requesting one of the shirts, essentially co-signing the move and adding another layer of fuel to an already raging fire. The Harris camp was fully mobilized. T.I. dropped his own music, and those releases were landing. His single from Kill the King climbed to #1 at Urban Radio and appeared on multiple charts, demonstrating that whatever personal and professional turbulence surrounded the feud, T.I.'s artistry was resonating. But T.I. was not entirely comfortable with every move his son had made during the campaign, and he made that clear in interviews. When asked at what point he felt the beef had gone too far, T.I. answered without hesitation: the T-shirt. Seeing his son wear a shirt printed with 50 Cent's deceased mother's face was the moment, T.I. said. He looked at the situation and decided it had escalated past the point he was willing to endorse. T.I.'s discomfort with the direction King had taken the beef went deeper than the T-shirt alone. In interviews, T.I. admitted that he had taken no pleasure in watching his son enter this territory, saying he had spent considerable time trying to keep King from going to kind of extreme places that the 50 Cent feud ultimately invited him to go. His concern was not just about optics or public image. It was about the years of guidance and redirection he had poured into his son, potentially being undone by a beef that gave King a seemingly legitimate reason to unleash the most reckless version of himself. T.I. had been pulling his son back from that edge for years, and now 50 Cent's post about Tiny had essentially handed King a permission slip to jump off it. And yet, T.I. also expressed a form of pride that sat uncomfortably alongside his disapproval. He spoke about having raised his children to be men who stand up for the people they love, men of respect who do not allow their families to be disrespected without a response. He said that one thing he was proud of through all of it was that the women and children in the Harris family could see that there was a line of men prepared to stand up for them against anyone. It was a complicated reality of a father who had instilled values of loyalty and protection in his son, and was now watching those same values expressed in ways that went further than he ever intended. 50 Cent, for his part, responded with characteristic nonchalance. His most prominent reply to the Tombstone post, and everything that followed, was a laughing emoji posted alongside a cartoon frog, a dismissive gesture that signaled he was not going to dignify any of it with a serious response. He released no diss record aimed at King. He made no direct musical rebuttal. He simply laughed and kept moving, which in its own way was perhaps the most cutting response of all. As T.I.'s music climbed the charts and the Harris family diss campaign generated headlines, 50 Cent's silence communicated that he did not consider King Harris a serious enough opponent to warrant the energy. In the wider context of King's story, the 50 Cent beef added a new and particularly revealing dimension. King Harris had gone from being known as T.I.'s son, who kept getting into legal trouble, to being the young man who posted a gravestone for a dead woman on the internet to defend his family. It was a moment that encapsulated everything about King's approach to conflict. All the way in, no hesitation, consequences considered only after the fact. And it set the stage perfectly for understanding why the girlfriend situation, the court appearance, the public speaking out, was not a surprise to anyone who had been paying attention to the full arc of the story. The numbers, when laid out plainly, are striking. King Harris was barely 21 years old, and within the span of roughly 4 years, he had been arrested multiple times, carried an open warrant stemming from a 2022 case that followed him into a 2024 arrest, had a very public physical altercation with his own parents at a professional football game, stepped into a beef with one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry, and had his name mentioned in allegations that stretched far beyond any traffic violation. Every one of those moments was documented, photographed, filmed, and archived by an internet that never forgets. T.I.'s Instagram Live warning about his son going to prison was not delivered in a moment of rage. It was delivered with the kind of resigned clarity that comes from lived experience. T.I. knows the justice system from the inside out. He served federal time on weapons charges. He has sat in courtrooms and jail cells and come out the other side with a very specific understanding of what the law is capable of doing to a young black man who keeps testing it. When he looked at the trajectory King was on and said plainly that prison was where it was heading, he was not issuing a dramatic threat for content. He was telling his son the truth in the only forum that still seemed capable of reaching him, a live audience watching on a phone screen. The girlfriend situation, the one that has her speaking out about her experiences in court settings and on social media, is not separate from everything that came before it. It is an extension of it. The arrests are in the record. The family altercation is on video. The diss tracks are on streaming platforms. The posts are archived. When someone close to King decides to speak publicly about what they have witnessed or experienced, all of that existing documentation gives their word to context that amplifies everything they say. The believability of any claim against King Harris has been preloaded by the man's own public behavior over years. That is a reality he built for himself, one post, one arrest, one confrontation at a time. In early 2025, body camera footage from King's October 2024 arrest in Dunwoody surfaced online and reignited the entire conversation. The nearly 30-minute video gave the public a front-row seat to the arrest, and viewers watched and weighed in. What the footage showed was a young man visibly frustrated but cooperative, doing what officers asked while clearly not happy about any of it. That cooperation was noted, and it was meaningful, but no amount of cooperation in the moment could undo the warrant, the firearm, or the marijuana found in the vehicle. The facts of the arrests were what they were, and the camera captured all of them. The firearms issue specifically carried its own weight, given T.I.'s history. T.I. spent time in federal prison on charges directly related to illegal weapons possession. It is a thing he paid the most significant legal price for, and it made him particularly sensitive to any image of his son holding or carrying a gun in public or on camera. When King filmed a music video with Lil Boozy's son, Tootie Raw, and both young men were clearly displaying firearms throughout the footage, T.I. called his son out directly in a video that went viral. King's defense was that it was not illegal to carry a gun, and technically, in the context he was describing, he was not wrong. But T.I.'s response cut right to the legal technicality. The issue was not legality in isolation. The issue was the image King was constructing around himself, and what kind of attention that image was going to attract from law enforcement and from people in environments where guns are not just props. T.I. had been down that road personally, and he was not about to watch his son wander down it without saying something. Even after everything, King was not pulling back. On February 25th, just days after the Tombstone post and the Made Man release in the T-shirt video, King posted on his Instagram story that 50 Cent was about to get him started all over again. He was still in it, still engaged, still feeding the cycle. And the people watching his life unfold, including the women connected to him romantically, were seeing all of it in real time. When someone in that position decides to walk into a courtroom or camera and start talking, they are not doing it without ammunition. They have front row seats to a life that has been lived loudly, recklessly, and with very little regard for who gets caught in the fallout. T.I. said it simply and clearly in one of his most quoted statements about his son. King is a good kid chasing the wrong things. That framing matters because it is not a condemnation. It is a diagnosis. A good kid chasing the wrong things can still change course. The question is whether he wants to, and whether the people and circumstances around him are going to give him the space to do it before the consequences become irreversible. T.I. knows from personal experience that the window for course correction is not always open. Sometimes the wrong thing chases you back and closes it. What makes King's situation so compelling to watch and so genuinely troubling beneath the entertainment surface is a tension between who he clearly has a potential to be and who he keeps choosing to be instead. He has a son now, a baby boy carrying the King Harris name into the next generation. He has music that people have responded to. He has a platform and a family connection that most people in the industry would trade anything for. And yet he also has a growing legal record, a pattern of confrontation that extends into every corner of his life, and a girlfriend who decided that what she experienced was worth taking to court. Every one of those things is true at the same time. The courts do not operate like Instagram. There is no delete button for a testimony. No way to archive a legal filing or log off from a deposition. When someone who had been inside King Harris's world decides to speak under oath, the documentation that King himself created through years of public behavior becomes a backdrop against which every word they say is evaluated. That is the reality King Harris is navigating right now. Not just a news cycle, not just a viral moment, but an actual legal and personal reckoning that has been years in the making. The story is still being written, but if every chapter so far has functioned as a warning, then the chapter currently unfolding may be the most urgent one yet. The girlfriend speaking out, the outstanding legal matters, the beef that put King's name in the same sentence as dead mothers and tombstone posts, the father who has publicly run out of ways to protect his son from himself. All of it is pointing in the same direction. Whether King Harris chooses to hear it is the only question that still remains open. And as anyone following this story closely already knows, King Harris has never been particularly interested in listening to warnings. The only thing left to find out is whether this time the consequences will be loud enough to finally change that.